I mean, how did we get here from, how did we get to where we are today? I think John and Karen alluded to it well. Our original solar policies in California date back to the late 1990s with the establishment of the net energy metering program, the Million Solar Roofs Initiative at the California Energy Commission. And I would argue we're so very successful in not only deploying so much solar in California, but really spurring this energy market evolution and transformation of the energy sector that has spread broadly across the country and across the world. And we all know that as California goes, so does the rest of the US and the world. So it's critically important for us to not only continue being a leader in solar energy policy, but recognize the impacts that our policymaker and regulatory decisions have impact the markets, not just our own home state here, but also reverberate broadly well beyond our state borders. And so, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the state established policies that were meant to encourage self-generation, on-site consumption of clean energy resources to help reduce demand on the grid, to help us start our climate policy goals and really accelerate decarbonization and energy independence. So again, both sides of the aisle, solar, microgrids, like clean energy resources that are deployed on-site locally, is something that all political stripes can get on board with for various reasons. Really important to highlight the bipartisan support for these types of solutions. And so back in the 90s and 2000s, our state took a number of steps to incentivize property owners primarily to install solar, mostly by virtue of our legacy policy and regulatory instruments at the time that were not intended necessarily to exclude any particular customer class, but naturally tended to enable one's customer class to benefit from solar, which was those that own property, primarily homeowners, with the creation of net energy metering, where you could install solar on your home or on your property. You installed a bi-directional meter that could record the production of the solar, and your meter would spin backwards. And when you exported that, or it would spin backwards when you exported power, and it would spin forwards when you imported power. Pretty simplistic energy and electricity technology. And so that allowed for many millions of customers to install solar. And that was something that was directed by our governor at the time, directed by the state legislature, encouraged by the regulators, and our early adopter technology, customers really took a lot of risk in deploying these new technologies and really helped get the market off the ground from its infancy into where we're at today. And so fast forward, the last 5-6 years or so, the legislature has acknowledged that, and the regulators have acknowledged that we've had a tremendous shift in market transformation where our adoption levels have increased tremendously. And so the simplistic net energy metering regulatory construct was no longer meeting the needs of California, especially when it relates to our grid needs, where we now have a ton of solar on the grid, mostly from utility scale resources, by the way. The distributed customer side is still a small, fraction of the overall adoption levels, but nonetheless, so much unbuffered solar has caused us to have the duck curve and challenges in the grid. And so now the state has taken steps to incentivize energy storage and make sure that we pair solar and storage together to help mitigate impacts on the grid and make sure that these resources can be more grid assets, not just unbuffered solar resources. And I was fortunate to work on SB 700 with Scott Wiener, passing $800 million of new SCHIP incentive money for storage. And that money has been already almost completely used up because storage has now become so popular with the adoption of solar. So we're really making a lot of progress in the market.